Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I love it whenever we get a chance to meet interesting people that help other people through their skills and talents, and especially when they have many different skills and talents that range from here over to here. That would be her. And there's a lot we have to talk about today. Everything from medical intuition, intuitiveness, therapy, mediumship, coaching, on and on and on. She joins us today. Noelle Deane is on the program. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. And just to get this out of the way, I'm going to say the information we present here is educational in nature, not medical or psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for seeking licensed healthcare services. So that being said, you have so many different talents, modalities that you offer people. I'm going to home in on the mediumship, if we may, to start. How do you define that?
Thank you for asking. I feel very picky about terms. I don't know if that's the therapist in me or because I teach, so I want it to be really precise.
Sure.
To me, mediumship is just communication.
Okay. And when you say communication, could that be communication with, let's say, somebody that's passed on to the other side? You communicate with them, you communicate whatever comes from spirit, universe, you convey it in terms of communication for people?
Yeah, all of that. It's a two-way street. And, at the risk of sounding, super woo and weird, so to ground for the show today, I was out, I was asking a tree if it would absorb some of my energy, and I got a sense of yes and got a visual with that. And so, talking to nature, talking to spirits, talking to our loved ones who've passed. I try talking to my cat. She doesn't share much. But in medical intuition, we can talk to organs. I've spoken to kidneys and livers before. I feel like everything, my perspective, and I'm not pretending in any way like I know the universal laws come out of my mouth of the universe. But from my understanding of things and the almost 30 years of really digging into this kind of stuff, everything, as we know, is made of energy. And a lot of, or all energy maybe has consciousness. And we can communicate with that consciousness. I feel like mediumship, all genuineness in saying this is unlimited. I feel like we're limited by our imagination. I get ideas that come to me often of different kinds of readings that could be helpful, communicating with past selves of our own. It's very expansive.
So I'm getting a different view of this. Would you say that mediumship is intuitive communication? Would we call it that? I'll put a label on it, but it kind of sounds like it is.
I really like how you said that. And the way I'm looking at it recently is it's like turning up the dial on your intuition. Intuition helps us tune into things and feel like we're in the flow of the universe. And if you dig even deeper, and I feel like we're all capable of doing this, if we choose to put in the time, and then those signs and signals from the universe become clearer and louder and more distinct. And that's how people communicate with us who are on the other side.
Mm-hmm. I'm right there. I'm on your page. I don't think any of this is woo-woo. Okay. And I can say, not being a medium, but I've experienced it over about 30 years, seen many different things, but even only in the last few years, truly feel like I've harnessed, connected with energy, finally realized what this energy thing is. I don't think it's weird talking to a tree. I went for a walk today, a jog as well. And, I looked at some trees and I'm like, I love you. You make me feel good. Just looking at the brush and everything, it's like, oh, this is a beautiful time of the year. And there's so much energy coming off of trees, off of a leaf. There's something there. I haven't quite figured it out. But even trusting your intuition, energy, right? Even in the last week and a half, I feel in terms of connecting with people, I'm reading their energy better than I ever did before. I feel like I finally found the dial and turned it up to see, wait, that's really good energy. Whoa, that over there, I don't want to be part of that. And I made a conscious effort in one situation, to your point, just like, yeah, I'm putting that, oh, stays over here. I don't want that over here. And that's just a feeling that I have, and I'm going with that feeling. I trust it. I trust my feeling.
Well, and you also trust yourself. And that's a big part of, like with mediumship, you can get a lot of information and think, oh my God, am I making this up? Or am I a little crazy here? Not to be derogatory with that term, but that's what people ask me at times when we talk about things that they experience. It sounds like you were connecting with the energy of love that was coming off of the trees and the grass and, just sort of the life and that positive energy. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm also reminded that when I was sitting outside and I had my feet in the grass, I was sitting on a rock. I could just really feel, I was
Hmm.
asking for support and I could just really feel it absorbing my
Sure.
energy. It was visceral.
It,
And I
right?
actually, if I can ask you a question.
Please.
So what are you doing differently that you're actually noticing this energy more clearly than you used to?
Um, try and answer that question. Uh, being open. That's just
Hmm.
it, being just like, I'm open. That's it. Whatever chains were on me, whatever blocks and all that stuff around there, it's like, it's open. What do you got? Let's bring it in here. Let's process it. Let's understand it. Um, that's basically it. It's and in my journey, this phase, and we're all, I believe, in journeys, and sometimes there are phases. In the last 3 years, somebody said to me, and there was the wake up to the door opener to all of this. Even though
Hmm.
I was dealing with energy and psychics and all of that, um, they asked me, "Why don't you ever live in the moment?" And I had no idea what they were talking about. And this is somebody I met. I said, you don't live in the moment. I'm like, what do you mean? You're living in the past, you live in the future. You're not savoring this right here at this time. It took time for me to process that. But once I did, I was like, all right. Then, and that was kind of the plane was taking off at that point. Um, how did you know what? I was going to ask you certain questions. I want your journey. How did it begin for you? You have a medical background, therapy, then we have this mediumship, this intuitive, all of this. How did it begin for you?
Well, feels like a bit of a sordid tale. When I was little, my grandmother was very sickly. I knew I wanted to do something that helped people, but I never was clear on what that was. And I think I was like a good girl in life and I did the things I was supposed to do, but I didn't really connect a lot with that. When I look back, I remember being intuitive as a kid. I always knew, like in second grade, when I was two questions away from being called on by the teacher, and I would figure out the answer to that next question in two questions and then be able to respond. The teachers must have thought I was really brilliant and very sharp because I always had the answer, but I had this heads up. But I let go of a lot of that
Hmm.
for, a whole list of reasons and didn't get back to that for a long time. I don't know if you want to talk about, if you want me to talk about my experience in New York.
Yeah. And I also
Okay.
want, your medical background that got you into medical intuition. And I met somebody else that does that as well. Whoa,
Hmm.
I believe in all of it. I truly do. Uh, yeah, let's talk about New York.
Okay. So I grew up in New York and New Jersey, and I had a big chapter of my life. In about 1993, 94, I was just kind of minding my business, walking to Port Authority. I had graduated from college a year earlier, still living in New Jersey, got a job in Manhattan at a financial company, and was walking down the street and was approached by this young woman who offered that her mother-in-law could do my astrological chart. Now, I grew up in a family that was Jewish, but not religious. And I will always remember my mother's stories that she loved telling about using a spirit board, or known as a Ouija board, years ago. And I mean, she has like great stories, very specific things came through that were validated. So I always had it in the back of my mind that metaphysical stuff was cool, but not something I engaged with.
Hmm.
But when somebody's offering my astrological chart, I was like, oh, okay. And I meet this woman. She's the first real psychic I ever meet. And she totally reads me, picks up on stuff. I'm floored by what she gets.
Now, how old were you at this time?
About 24,
Gotcha.
25.
Okay.
Maybe I'll sound too old to have had this very naive experience, but that's where I was. So I meet this woman. She picks up on all this stuff. I was secretly in love with this guy that I worked with, but kind of hopeless about all of it. And she picks up on that and other things and says, you know, you're carrying the karma of your parents. There's no way you're actually going to be happy in this life. And that might sound weird to hear somebody say. This was after she validated all these other things she had picked up on me. I mean, truly a psychic person. But I really felt my hopelessness connect with her words. I didn't have a lot of hopes for myself and in that way. So whatever came out of her mouth next that she was offering to help me with was very appealing to me. She offered me hope that I didn't have. And she was smart enough and manipulative enough to see like kind of a true sucker in me. So we built a relationship over the course of a very long year and a half, where it started with these little tests, like take a rose petal bath, bring me the rose petals, and she would read them. She would shock me with the information she would come up with. One time I was in my basement apartment in Clifton, New Jersey. She's in New York City, and she told me what I had for dinner. As we're talking on the phone, she could taste the food that I had in my mouth. Things that were strange. Anyway, there was a long history of her telling me how much she hated money but needed money to do this spiritual work that she did, and that she helped people all the time. She was very generous. She told me these things. She was very kind. She was really helpful. And the truth is, I didn't have a relationship with an older woman in that same kind of way, kind of a mentor, a little bit motherly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just shocked and so thankful somebody was willing to offer to help me.
Wow.
So started out slowly, and it morphed into giving her money from my paycheck, giving her almost all of my paycheck. Then she needed more money. She encouraged me to get credit cards that offered cash advances. We did that. We made big purchases to buy things that she would bring to her house, share her energy of her happy family with me, to give me this happy life that she seemed so committed to. And I really believed her. Like, I really believed her. And when I had any doubt, she would say, the spirits are telling, and she would kind of berate me. The spirits are telling her that I'm not believing. One of the conditions of her being willing to work with me was that I could not tell anybody about what we were doing because she would die. And of course, I didn't want that to happen. So I really did keep my mouth shut, which of course, as we know, in any controlling relationship, that's part of the dynamic, but I didn't see it at the time. You know, it sounds pretty extreme, but it's true that the money kept being needed more and more. At one point, she told me I was supposed to be a dancer. I was shocked and floored. I didn't even know what she was talking about. I go home. I do this little visual meditation I'd never done before. I see a picture of my father's bat mitzvah picture and all the grandparents, and I'm staring at this light bulb, and I get this visual of all of them doing the can dance. And I take it as a sign. Everything else she told me had come true or been true. So I followed what she said. I was a dancer for several months. I gained weight. They kicked me out. I told her. She was like, oh yeah, in her normal unsurprised kind of way, as if she knew everything that was coming. And then she said, like Mary, you're supposed to be a prostitute. So I contacted an escort agency, and I did that for several months. There's lots of details that I'm not going to share because they're not important, but I want to convey like the enormity of the relationship and the trust of the wrong person, and kind of the desperation of not feeling like I could connect in any way to my intuition or where I wanted to get spiritual answers from for myself. So I completely relied on somebody that I assumed had my best interests at heart. And it's a good lesson that just because you have psychic gifts and those sorts of things, it doesn't make you a good person with good intentions.
Wow.
That's
Thank you for your transparency and sharing that. Do you believe that she had some intuitiveness?
oh, she showed over and over. I could see. Like, do you remember not Publishers Clearinghouse, but the place that used to send us CDs? You'd get like 9 CDs for a penny or something.
Columbia.
Columbia House.
Thank you. Yeah.
I remember one time opening. Now, this is just a couple of little examples. This happened all the time where I was like, oh, I don't remember filling out that form. I guess you had to fill out a form. And I'm on the phone with her as I open the little package. She says, there are 2 broken in there. And I open it and there are 2 broken in there. Like everything.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Side note, digression. I always had this scheme of filling it out for my neighbor and then watching the mail carrier bring it to their doorstep and then running over there and getting it. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, it seems that she was intuitive. She picked up on your intuitiveness at the time, which was green, if you will. It was just
Oh,
very
yeah.
fresh. You didn't even know. And there are people who out there who are energy vampires and able to, she manipulated in many ways, but I think it wasn't just her words. I think she had more of a control on you through the intuition, the energy, and everything else that was going on at that time, to the point where she would just sink the hook in and get it, whatever she wanted accomplished. I find it amazingly interesting that you went from that experience to becoming somebody that offers mediumship, helps others with intuition, medically and otherwise. Wow. That's did that happen because you wanted to do it right? You had a
I'm not gonna,
feeling that, just a feeling where, you know what, this was done to me. I'm not letting that happen to anybody. I'm going to take this on and I'm going to help people using what I was given, which, unfortunately, I didn't get to use it when I was in my 20s the way it should have been used. So I'm doing it now, later in life.
well, I think that kind of thought about it came later. At first, I think my life crashed down. I had shared this story with my mother eventually, and she encouraged me to move to San Diego. So when I was here, I was kind of a lump and didn't know where to go and what to do. And I got into personal development and other things. And a friend that I met there through a personal development workshop shared with me about a spiritualist church where you can get angel messages, which I'd never heard of. I wasn't going to use a spirit board. I was really trying to learn and train myself to listen to my intuition, much less actually follow it. There was a lot of disconnection between me and that. So it really was inspiration just to feel a connection to my grandparents, who were like a real sense of family to me. That's why I started.
Mm-hmm.
It took on a whole life of its own. And I get the irony, believe me.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm also a believer here and things happen for a reason. And maybe that needed to happen to get you to a certain point in life. One of the things that you share are the flags, for good or for worse, when someone is considering a medium or somebody with intuition looking for guidance. Can you share some of those things to look and watch out for?
Absolutely. So when I was mentioning earlier about her telling me how kind she was and how much she helped people, I think that's a red flag with just people in general. So I listen for that now. But I feel like the red flags, certainly that I picked up from her, but I also had experiences with other people who also were preying on me in the same kind of way, which I just took as, this is a test. I'm not back where I was, and I'm passing the test, so I'm okay. To feel like I'd made progress to get away from the person who would be victimized again in that same kind of way. So what she evoked in me was she preyed upon my fear, my lack of hope.
Mm-hmm.
She told me that how she described it is I needed her services, I needed her help to change this karma, to change this dark energy, to have what I wanted. So really preying on my sense of helplessness in a lot of ways. And I feel like if you meet, and actually just like a year ago, I was somewhere in a crystal shop taking a class, and this woman there, maybe she just needed the business. I'm a intuitive medium. If she picked up on me needing to do some energy work on myself, she could have just said, "Hey, sister, maybe you should do this." But instead, she was offering, she just kept looking at me saying, "You need help with this. You need me to do this." And I just sat there and had this moment of smiling a little bit at myself that she was saying she was doing the same thing. Nobody should say that you need them, you need their service,
Mm.
unless they're offering it for free and they're just doing it because, look, honey, you actually really could benefit from this. Let me help you.
Well, she did offer it for free in the beginning.
At first, true.
Yeah. Do you believe that people reveal themselves in the beginning? They tell you who they are in the beginning right away.
Mm.
And
Well,
I don't mean in this situation. I'm speaking from experience. When I look back to the I would say errors in judgment, but yeah, if I listened to what was being presented to me, I would have, and it's easier said than done. Where, we get wrapped up in things, whether it's in a relationship and, at that moment you're so smitten, everything's great. Oh, and you didn't see the signs that were somebody was literally handing it to you. Here you go. Just, you should pick up on this. Um, the more and more I start picking up on it, I start to see that, that's what that was about. Okay. Maybe she gave it to you and you didn't, I wouldn't have picked up on it at that point. You were just looking for a mentor, somebody take you under their wing. And it seemed, and there were people in my life that did the same thing in terms of taking me under their wing. It could have gone horribly wrong. How do I know? It didn't. Um, but I was at that point. I was 17. Then I got my first job with the help of somebody. But if they were, thinking something differently, I was already sucked in. You never know what could happen. Hmm.
yeah. And there's a lot of ways that you can look at everything, I guess. And I'm trying to find more of this spiritual perspective of there's how we see things when we're here, but then there's how we can see things like from a higher perspective, like
Yeah.
why we needed this lesson, why we were, let's say, unaware. And I've gotten some readings and done some readings for myself where I could actually see there was let's say, a karmic rebalancing for me to have that kind of experience.
Totally get it.
It's, yeah.
Totally understand what you're saying. And I know it's a cliche and some people don't want to accept it, but the stuff that happens to us is a lesson. And if you if you don't listen to it, it's going to happen again until you learn the lesson. But when you start connecting the dots, I find, oh, that's why that happened. Let's say an experience back in your life wasn't the best, but it's made you a better person today. It's a cliche. It's hard to swallow that one. But when you think about it, and not even try to think about it, just look at it face value. It's like, oh, okay. I see why that happened. I'm not happy about it, but that's why that happened.
Yeah, you don't have to love how it came to you. Like, I
Right.
don't love what happened, but I'm clear that I never would have pursued things the way that I did.
Yeah.
It's like, I had breast cancer 9 years ago. And I'm lucky I survived. So I could say, oh, putting it in perspective, and there are people who die. So you kind of can only, I feel like, say those sorts of things about yourself. But I feel like my experience with cancer helped me change things in my life I never would have changed until I retired, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And, we can look at the idea, karma is a term that's thrown around a lot. My understanding now is that it's about a rebalancing. So if I screwed somebody over in a past life, manipulated them and treated them like crap, when I come back in a future life, I'm going to really want to learn the lesson of how horrible that was for that person. So I'll likely take on a much harder lesson of my own. So the rebalancing is a lesson to learn like on a soul level, but it's not meant to be like a punishment in the way that we often do think of karma.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right there with you. Like, oh, karma train's going to pull up for them soon. Karma police are getting out. We're out of time. I would love to even circle back at some point on karma And, is there good
Sure.
karma? Is there bad karma? How do we connect with you? If somebody even wants to unpack some of this, I know that you offer a lot of different packages, even just on the mediumship level. How do they find you, Noelle?
I'm at connectingwithnoelle.com. It's Noelle. I'm on social media. My website is the best way to reach out to me. And, I just want to say also, well, I don't want to make us run out of time. I'm really appreciating this conversation so much and that we're on the same level. There are also yellow flags and green flags. There are a lot of great things that can come out of working with other psychics and mediums and that kind of thing. And I can put that on my website or somewhere to make it available to people if we don't talk about it again. But
Sure.
I don't want to try to present like, hey, I'm honest, but everybody else is a shyster kind of thing, because I really don't feel that way. And that's not what I'm about at all.
And I don't think that either. We just ran out of time. So
Oh,
maybe next time we get together, we can start with that and maybe get on the karma road. But Noelle, great
sure.
meeting you. Great talking with you. I truly appreciate your honesty and transparency, because we all learn from it. Everybody's got a story, and looking forward next time we get together.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.